guys. I'm David Dispinat. This is Bill Cole, local photographer,
Hi.
a good friend of mine. He's shot some of these YouTube videos with me. Today we're going to be talking about the Sigma 85mm art lens, 1.4. Things to mention, B&H, thanks for sending this out to us. And we are not sponsored by Sigma, even though it's going to sound like we are, because this is how excited we are about their lenses, their art. I should say specifically their art line.
Yes.
One thing that I mentioned, and we did do a review on their 24mm, which is right here, and we'll put a link right here. One thing I should mention, and I said this in the 24mm video, is that I bought some Sigma lenses when I first started out as a photographer because they were a little bit cheaper than the same thing pretty much for Canon, and I had a lot of issues with soft forwards and backwards focusing. So a lot of the images would look soft or they wouldn't focus properly. So I kind of swore off Sigma. I kind of just went the Canon Tamron route, and back 2 months ago, I was at the Cincinnati Photo Expo shooting, and Sigma was there, and they had these loaner things set up there. So they had all these little booths set up where you could go shoot models with lighting setups, and then you could actually go grab these Sigma lenses. And I was thinking about getting an 85, and I was like, you know what? I've sworn them off. People keep telling me this new art line's amazing. I grabbed it. I was amazed by it. I told Bill. Bill's like, I don't need an 85.
In fact, I'd never had an 85 and was just really down on it because it's just a focal length that I don't use.
Thinks you know that does the job. Well, I was like, hey, let me hit up B&H. You know, we've got the sponsorship with them. Let's have them send out the 85 and the 24. Well, he wanted the 24. I wanted the 85. Bill played around with the 24 for a while. I played around with the 85. Bill sent me a text after playing around with the 85 that said, "Love the 24. We'll buy the 85.
Exactly.
And I'm going to let Bill talk a little bit about his experience with the 85.
And I found out about Sigma art lenses from a friend of mine, Stuart Pretty, who loaned me his 50 one day. And it became my everyday go-to lens for everything. So when the 24 came out, and I had shot 24 back in the 80s in the old film days, and there was so much distortion that I really didn't like it. So I wrote it off completely. But my local camera store, Murphy's Camera, said, try the 24. And I shot it out in their parking lot one day, and it looked okay, but a chance to play with it for a month, this was unbelievable. And then the 85 on top of that just turned out to be wonderful.
He lost it when he played around with the 85. Actually, I'm going to pop up a picture right now of the bourbon shot that you did.
It's a Glencairn glass, which is what we drink bourbon out of here in Kentucky, because we're bourbon snobs here.
We like our bourbon here in Kentucky.
And we make most of it.
Yeah.
Well, all of the good stuff anyway.
All the stuff we're drinking is made right here in Kentucky.
And the Glencairn glass is very specific, but one of the things that's cool about it, it has some etching in the bottom of it, and the crystal clarity of how sharp this lens captured it.
So you guys can actually see that.
And it's absolutely amazing.
And we'll set that up for download for them, so they can actually pixel peep that. Because unfortunately, when we're shooting via YouTube, videos for YouTube, the quality is only as good as YouTube allows it, as good as video allows it. It's not going to be nearly the quality that we have while we're sitting behind the computer editing. So we'll do a download also for the 85, and this is for you technical people out there, the people that really want the technical aspect of how well the lens performs. Bill went through and did a bunch of shots at different f-stops to figure out where the bokeh is, the softness is, the sharpness is, the diffraction is. And we're going to actually we're going to screenshot him playing around in Photoshop, talking about a couple different pictures he took, and kind of pointing out some things. Again, those pictures will also be available for download. We'll add a link down below so that you guys can actually follow along and pixel peep as much as you'd like, because, again, the quality is not going to be as good as what we're physically seeing. Now, we're giving you guys the JPEGs. Bill will be editing or showing you guys
the RAWs.
In the RAWs. So a few things to talk about. Diffraction. Bill?
Diffraction is what happens when you get at the larger f-stops. What is happening is that the lens actually starts recording everything with the same sharpness, but it looks a little less sharp because everything has the same sharpness, and you don't have that contrast because our eye sees contrast.
Right. So you don't have as much of a sharp focal point to just put your eyes, like, oh, well, that person's in focus, so that's where I'm going straight to with my eyes.
Exactly. And so the whole idea is that everything becomes more focused, but it all looks a little bit softer.
Right.
Compared to at the other end of the spectrum where the lens is just soft, because you've got so much light coming in, the photons are bouncing. Right. And so you're not getting the clear images on your data sensor the way that you normally would at a sweet spot f-stop, maybe closer to f8.
Yeah, so I always say between 7.1 and f8 is going to be your sweet spot. Some people's lenses are between 8 and f11. Above f11 is when you get diffraction. Below 7.1, maybe 5.6 areas when you start to get the softness, because your f is is wide open and you're getting more and more light in to your sensor.
And that happens with every lens, and it doesn't matter who the manufacturer is.
Right.
It's softer at the lower f-stops that lens is capable of. It always will be.
But we were pretty impressed with how the 85 did at the lower f-stops and how sharp it still was. Now, granted, I think you said 1.4 and f4 on the 85. You could definitely see a difference.
Oh, definitely. And I'll pull those up when we screen cap it.
Blow it up to 300-400.
500%.
500% to see the major difference.
And
so the naked eye is probably not even going to catch that.
I shot a model in the studio with the absolute lowest and just a minor touch of sharpening in camera raw when I was doing the processing, and it was more than acceptable sharp by far.
We'll actually pop that picture up as well right now. A little boudoir shot, I believe.
Yeah, a local model named Daisy Vaughn. Daisy was so much fun to work with. She's just getting started. And she was kind enough to come in and let me test the lens on her.
Thankfully, we have quite a few models here in town that put up with us and allow us to work with them and test out all this equipment.
It's such a horrible thing to have to do, though, David.
Oh my God, tell me about it. Sigma, great job. Okay.
B&H, thanks for loaning me this tool that, oops, I'm sorry, I'm never going to send it back to you.
He's going to lose it until they watch this video, and then he's going to refind it and send it back.
Okay, so I'll buy it.
So he's going to buy, pretty much B&H. Like,
just don't tell my wife.
Give us the money then. How about you give us the money, we'll let you keep it. Trade?
I can deal with that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we're going to jump into Photoshop right now.
Sounds good.
And we're going to take a look at some photos that the 85 took. Again, 24 millimeter video right here if you guys want to check out that review. And I think that's pretty much it.
As a last thought, do you want to give them some tips on getting sharper images in general?
Okay, so one thing that Bill and I noticed is people were complaining on the forums that some of the Sigma art lenses were soft. Now we have the 50 millimeter, the 24 millimeter, the 85 millimeter. Have we had any issues with softness?
None whatsoever.
None.
Like I said, the 50 is my go-to everyday lens. Right. I use it for everything.
So we believe that, and maybe we just got, maybe B&H is like, we're just going to make sure these guys get the sharpest ones. We're going to test them out before we send them. But what we really believe is that a lot of it has to do with, I wouldn't necessarily say photographer error, but maybe just lack of knowledge of how to get your images sharper, how to make sure that there isn't any movement. Now, when shooting, something as simple as shooting a wedding, and I'm holding the camera out here and I'm shooting like this, okay? Versus holding the camera here and shooting like this, I'm already stabilizing the camera even more, not allowing for as much handshake, therefore getting a sharper image. As well, let's think about it a little further. Let's put it on a tripod. Let's connect a shutter release. Now it's going to be even sharper. And once we add that shutter release, even sharper because I don't have to touch the camera at all.
And there's no substitute for that.
Right, and I just push a button off to the side of the camera. I've already got my settings. I've already got the model where I want her or the subject where I want it. And you're going to get sharper. So the biggest thing is how you're shooting. Granted, when you're at a wedding, of course, you can't be walking around with a tripod or a monopod and shooting. You need to be a little more free to move around. So, but think about how you're shooting with your body. You want to keep the camera and your body as stable as possible. So
lean on a wall.
Yeah.
Lean on a wall. Hold your breath.
And there are times that, like, the shot I need, there's a wall right next to me. I lean up to the wall, and I'm able to stabilize myself as much as possible. So a lot of it has to do with stabilization. Even at a shutter speed of 1/60th of a second, you are still going to get some handshake. So if I stabilize myself the best I possibly can, and let's say 1/200th of a second, and I take the same exact shot with the camera on a tripod using a shutter release, we blow it up to 300 or 400%, you're going to actually see the difference of the handheld versus the tripod.
Try it yourself.
Yeah, and yes, and a lot of this, we're telling you this, so don't just take our word for it. And that's one thing that frustrates me is people go out and take the word for photographers because a lot of times, I'm sure I've said stuff that was incorrect information. Bill's probably given out incorrect information.
Never.
I forgot. Bill's kind of perfect when it
exactly.
comes to photography. So, but go out and test it because sometimes you do get incorrect information from photographers, and you take it as a science, and it's actually not. Now, I'd like to think what I just told you right here in my head, it's a science. Okay, this is how you're going to get a sharper image. Maybe you find a better technique, maybe you don't, but go out and try this. A lot of becoming a better photographer is trial and error and practice. And if you kind of get stuck in the same rut doing the same thing over and over again, and you don't test new ideas or new theories, you're not going to develop or grow as a photographer.
And testing is a big part of it.
The Sigma lens kind of helped you grow a little bit.
One of the things I learned is to test my lenses. I never had before. And now I'm going to pull every lens out of my bag, and I'm going to do the exact same thing I did with these Sigma lenses. I'm going to shoot the same subject under the exact same set of controlled variables and sit down and look at every image and find out where my sweet spot is and how my lens performs.
And that's the final step, really. After you get it on the tripod, it's like, where does the f-stop need to be to get that sharpest possible image? And that's something that Bill's never done in the past. Now, I learned this many years ago, and I've told Bill about it, but we stay so busy shooting, and we really hadn't had time to sit down and test this out. And Bill was just like, he sent me a text the other day again, kind of being like, wow, I'm going to be testing all my lenses out and figuring out where my sharpest, because Bill just found another variable to getting his lens a little bit sharper, to getting that image sharper.
And part of my signature look is the sharpness.
Yeah.
That's what I want in my images. And so knowing where each lens has its sweet spot at is a crucial variable for me.
So, but hopefully this helped you guys out a little bit. I know it was partial review on the 85 here.
But it's a beautiful lens. I mean, it deserves this review.
It was great. And the other parts was just trying to teach you guys how to get, a sharper image. So let's jump into Photoshop. Let's have some fun. Let's show these guys what this thing can really do. And again, there'll be a folder down below, JPEGs. Download them if you'd like, so that way you can physically see what we're talking about when we're going through Photoshop, because we're screen capturing this on a computer, so it's not going to be nearly as sharp as what we are physically seeing with our eyes while we're sitting at the computer.
Exactly.
We'll see you guys in Photoshop.
Be there in a minute. Okay, so what I'm going to do is pull up the 4 basic images for the test of the Sigma 85. You'll notice it is a picture of the Sigma 24. But I'm going to pull up the 1.4, the 4.0, the 8.0, and the 16 to give you an idea of what those f-stops will look at. What you're seeing right now is the 1.4. Now, the cool part of this is the bokeh. I mean, look at this. Isn't it gorgeous? One of the things I should mention is that our test set up very specifically. The lights that I'm using to create the bokeh are exactly 4 feet behind the lens in all of these images. And the camera was calibrated in such a way that the lighting, everything is exactly 0 metered based upon my Canon evaluative metering. So everything is identical as much as you can make it for the test. So this is the 1.4. Look specifically at the bokeh. It is absolutely gorgeous. Now let me pop up the 16 for you real fast. You see the difference. This is the exact same image at f16. Here it is again at 1.4. There are slight magnification differences that will make it look like it's a little bit different, but it's actually the exact same image. But look at the difference in the bokeh. If we go down to f8.0 and then we go to f4. So I'm going to take them in order again just very quickly for you. Here's 1.4, 4.0, 8.0, 16.0. That'll give you an idea of what the bokeh looks like. Each one, again, set up very specifically for the test just for bokeh. Now, to evaluate the sharpness, the best way of doing that is to blow up the image. Now, my focal point, if you can see it right now, is on the colon, where it says 24 millimeter 1 to 1.4. The colon is actually what I focused on for the image. So I'm going to blow this up. The hotkey for that, by the way, I'm on a Mac, is Command plus. If you're on a PC, it would be Control plus. Holding down my Shift key while I move it over so you can get an idea of the sharpness. Right here, this is what my focal point was. This tells you exactly how sharp this lens is. Now again, I shot it on a tripod with a cable release under very controlled conditions to make it as sharp as it possibly could be. Now this is the 1.4 image. If we go to the 4.0, and again, I'm going to use my hotkeys to blow it up so that we can get an idea of the sharpness. Take a look at that colon. This is what I was focusing on right there. If we go to the 8.0, and again, use the hotkeys, hold down the Shift while I move the image. Look how sharp that is. Right now, I'm at 300%. And if I blow this up all the way, that's 500% magnification right there. Look how sharp. That is just unbelievable. Go to the f16. There's the full image, and we're going to blow it up. Blowing it up to 300% here. Let's get it back over to the, look how sharp that is. 500% blow up right there. Just unbelievably sharp. Now let me take 5% at the 1.4, and you're going to see that it is significantly less sharp. That's because it's 1.4. You can't fix that, but this lens is amazing. Go back down to the original image, and I'm going to make this a little bit smaller. And I'm going to pull up the f8, which is kind of the sweet spot for this lens. And I'm going to make it a little bit smaller. And I'm going to put these two images side by side. That'll give you an idea of what they look like. Side by side, 1.4 and 8.0. Now if I were to blow up to 300%, and focus on that, there's the f16. And there is the f4. Difference in the sharpness. One more image that I want to bring up here. There was an image we talked about, and that is the Glencairn spill. Bring this up, and I'm going to blow this up as well to show you what it can do. This is at 100%. Notice the etching here in the bottom of the glass and how sharp it is. 200%, 300, and 500. I've been shooting glassware for many years, and I've rarely, if ever, seen this degree of sharpness at 500% magnification.
All right, guys, well, I hope you enjoyed Bill going through this section. Just to let you know again, in the description bar, there will be a link so you can download these JPEGs and pretty much go through and look at it yourself in Pixel Peep. Starting now, I'm going to throw up some images that Bill and I have both taken. Now, unfortunately, we can't let you download those because those are ones that we use with clients that hired us to do stuff. But you can actually get an idea of how the lens performed on a professional level. So those will be, some of those images will be available on my website if you want to get a better resolution that's not through a screen capture. And lastly, of course, there's always going to be a link to the lens itself. Takes you to B&H, and if you do decide to check it out or buy it, it does help us anytime you guys buy anything through our links. That's what keeps Media Unlocked afloat, is that little bit of commission that we get through B&H. Anyways, guys, thanks for stopping in. We'll catch you next time. Have a great day. Well, if you made it this far, might as well go on and hit that subscribe button on Media Unlocked. It's full of helpful videos for photographers and videographers, far as reviews with the newest gear coming out to tutorials on how to do certain things. As well, there's a link for our Instagram. Go on and click that and follow us along on Instagram because we have some really cool pictures that we put up. As well, some really awesome behind the scenes stuff so you can see our setups when we're doing professional shoots or we're just doing shoots here for Media Unlocked. Thanks for stopping in, guys.